everyone, and welcome to the first in our new series called Lockdown Legacy. We're really hoping that this series will help each one of us to think critically about what our lockdown experience has been like. As Christians, we believe that God can use every experience we go through, no matter how hard, to help us to grow in our faith and to learn new things about Him. So as Christians, we really can say all things work together for good for those who love God. It would be a shame to miss out on the good things that God has been teaching us. So I'm hoping that this series will help us to think about what we have learned during this time. Each time, someone from the congregation is going to come on and share with us the lessons that they have learned. And through listening to them, we hope that we will all be able to think back to the lessons that we have learned as well. So the first person who's coming on today is Louise Mackay. So thank you, Louise, for agreeing to be the first person to come on and speak in this series. You're very brave to come on first, and I hope that you. So let me start off with the first question. It's a long time since some of us have seen each other. So can you tell us, what have you been up to since March?
Well, not much, probably like everybody else, but I think lockdown came at quite a good time for me, or quite an easy time maybe. I had been off on maternity leave, and then I just started back to work, and then schools closed. So I think I had already gone from quite a relaxed pace of life, maybe from maternity leave straight into lockdown. So not a lot changed for me probably at the start. Really what I did was I bought a buggy that I could go running with, and I just used to pack a picnic and just go for a run with George. And then the weather was always so good. It was easy to just spend a day outside in the park or at the beach or somewhere. And yeah, we just had a great time, really. And we bubbled with my mum and dad because they lived just down the road. And then it meant they were always there as well. So I never really had that really lonely, isolated feeling that some people have felt during lockdown, because I could always just go to their house, for a cup of tea or just sit out in the garden with them. So I think especially for the first part of lockdown, it was just quite a relaxed sort of extended maternity leave really for me. And then obviously summer we were allowed to meet people, and that just sort of became quite a normal life again for me. And it's probably now that people are back to school, but because I'm pregnant, I'm not allowed back, and people have started going back to church. And just because I have George and I'm pregnant, so I haven't been doing those things. So I think maybe now feels like more of a lockdown for me than before. But yeah, we're just sort of still doing the same thing. We just go for walks, go to the forest, go to the beach, and just have quite a relaxed time. But I'm quite a content person, I think, so it hasn't been too bad, really.
It sounds like it did really come at quite a good time for you, and having that extra time at home with George and so on, that must have been really nice. You've mentioned perhaps it's getting a bit more challenging now. Were there any other things that you found challenging then, even though you quite enjoyed the extra time with George and the time outdoors? Was there anything you found particularly challenging?
I think at the start, so I'd only been back to work for about 3 weeks, and then we went into home teaching, and that was a challenge because I didn't know the class. So I was always trying to guess what I should be teaching or what they had already covered. But after a week or two, that sort of became sort of the new natural normal thing to be doing. Probably what I find the most challenging, and probably still is the most challenging, is just not getting swept up in the panic and the whole fear of the whole thing. I think the first few weeks, I was genuinely a bit scared. Sort of thought this is going to be the end of the world and everybody's going to get sick, and I think it was really hard to stay informed by what was happening but not get swept along in the panic. And I think that's still something I have to work at, is that even though things maybe aren't normal, it's not maybe just as doom and gloom as what a lot of people make it out to be. I think it's just to try and stay positive is really the biggest challenge.
Yeah, I remember I read an article near the beginning of lockdown called "Being Fearful is Not Christian," And I always tried to remember the lessons that were in that article. Now, it was written very early on in lockdown, and things changed a lot after that. But the main message, I think, was true. As Christians, we're to not be afraid, aren't we? So yes, thank you for that. Now, as Christians, we want to be reflective, don't we? Seeing how we can learn or grow in our faith by whatever experiences we go through. So are there things that you have been learning or ways that you've been growing in your faith throughout this year?
Yeah, I think a few years ago, I sort of worked a bit on prayer and making sure that I prayed sort of faithfully. But I think a lot of my prayer was praying for something or asking for something, or just maybe like praying for forgiveness or that sort of thing. And then I think as lockdown has been here and everything is quite negative, I think I've tried to think more about praying to be like to glorify God more, because that is ultimately our purpose and on the earth, is to glorify God. And I think at the start I was always praying like, oh, like, Lord, keep us safe, and Lord, help us get a vaccine, and all of that is really important, obviously, to pray for as well. But I think I just spent so much of my prayer time just asking for things. I was kind of forgetting to be thankful for things. And I think, especially now that it's not the summer and it's not maybe just as nice during lockdown as it has been, I think it's really important now to try and find things that I'm thankful for. And I sort of set a challenge that every day I have to be thankful for something right up until Christmas. And at the start, like, I did genuinely find it quite a challenge. Some nights when I would have gone to bed, I'd have thought, like, there's nothing has happened today that I'm thankful for. And it just made me quite ashamed. Like how awful a person am I that I have got everything, but yeah, I'm still not thankful for something. And I think I have really worked on that, at just being thankful for the little things. Like, you know, just if you see something really beautiful, like swans that just look so peaceful in the river, you just stop and think, like, I am so thankful for that. And I remember somebody bought me a book for George's birthday, and in it said it's like the mum prays to say thank you for all the child's milestones. And I remember thinking, like, when George learned to walk, I wasn't thankful to God for that, but I should have been. So I think it has taught me to be thankful for things that just happen naturally, and just to be a bit more gracious about what God has given us, and not just spend so much time praying for something else that he can do.
Yeah. No, that's great. And the Bible tells us, doesn't it? Don't worry, but be thankful. And thankfulness is the antidote to a lot of worry and fear, isn't it? Being thankful for the things we have and the things that God has done for us. So yeah, that's really great. But I always find, I don't know if you find, Louise, that lessons that we learn about prayer, after a while you can forget again, and you nearly need to relearn and keep reminding yourself about the things that you've learned about the way that we pray. It's so easy to drift back into our old ways of praying, isn't it? And to forget the lessons that we've learned. Okay, well, if there's was one thing that you were going to take away, maybe that's it, maybe you've already mentioned it, but if somebody asked you, is there one thing you would take away from this experience over recent months, what would you say?
It's probably really corny, and it's probably what everybody says, but it's just time with your family, I think, is the most important thing. Like, we originally bubbled with my mum for childcare, so that if I had to go back into work, then we had somebody for George. But like, truly, if I had to pick somebody to bubble with out of anybody, it would be my mum and dad. And I just think, for me going forwards, I will look back on this whole year as just this really, like, kind of an extra year of my life that I got to spend at home with, not only with George and all the memories that I've created there, but all the memories I've created with my mum as well. And I think as I go forward, that's going to be really special to me as we both get older. And I just think that's what everybody has said from lockdown. It is, you realise who is the most important people in your life. And for me, it's definitely probably valuing my mum's company more than what I would have done before. Like, we always got on well. Like, it's not as though we've overcome any big drama or anything, but it's just, I don't know, just being more grateful for just her presence here, and I think just the memories that we have made together. Like, I just always remember we went to Glenarm one day because it's the only place that toilets were open, so we went there quite a lot. But I just remember just sitting on the beach, sitting at the harbour bit with her and George in his buggy, and it was really sunny, and we both got an ice cream, and like George had his first taste of ice cream sitting there. And I just remember thinking, like, where else would you want to be on like a Tuesday afternoon than just sitting here with your mum and your baby, just enjoying the sunshine? And I just think it's those little memories that I will take away from this, because I'll probably not get a chance, to have such an extended time with them in the future.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lovely thing to think, isn't it? God gave me an extra year to spend with my child and spend with my family. So yeah, that's really nice. Is there a particular verse or a particular passage from the Bible that has been important to you over this time, or that has been especially meaningful to you, or that you've kept thinking about over past months, do you think?
Yeah, well, I did Margaret Copeland's biblical thinking class, and I found them really useful. And I think maybe the first book that I looked at with her, or after those classes, was James. And I've actually gone back to it over lockdown because I just think it's just the most, just positive book. I just think if you need a moral compass, you just kind of read James. And for me, it's just one of my favourite books, I think. But there's two bits in it. One is talking about peace, about how the harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. And I just think at the start, especially when everybody was so panicked and so worried about everything, I just remember thinking that we need to be peaceful. We need to make sure that as Christians, we are the peaceful people out of all this. And although we can have worry and we can have fear, because that's natural, we need to make sure that just peacefulness is what other people see from us as well. And then I also thought about, it talks about taming the tongue, like it's such a small member, but it can do so much goodness and badness as well. And I just thought, it always reminded me of a song that we used to do in Sunday school, like "Be careful little ear what you hear, be careful little hand we do," that song. And I just remember thinking that we need to be careful what we hear, because other people's tongue can have so much power as well. It's not just about our tongue. And I just think there's so much fake news out there that verse always reminds me that sometimes what other people are saying could just be it says in the Bible, it's deadly poison. So I think we have to just always think that what other people are saying could be deadly poison. So we have to remember that not what everybody says isn't always good. But I also think then I have to be careful what I say as well, because I could be feeling that fire. When you get a group of people together and they all start like saying things like, "Oh, I don't know why hairdressers are closed," and then that just starts a whole tirade of people slagging everything off. Yeah. So I always think of that verse, that my tongue has to do the goodness and sow the peace and not fuel the fire, really. So just always makes me think of that when we meet other people as well.
Yeah. Yes, thanks for that, Louise. I mean, I often think that the tongue, as the Bible says, it's true when it says that the tongue is the hardest thing to control, isn't it? So thinking about words and what we hear as well as what we speak, and remembering to be peaceful people, those are good things for us to remember as we finish today. So thank you very much, Louise, for coming along, and thank you for agreeing to share the things that you have learned over the past number of months. And if anyone else would like to come and talk to me about the things that you have learned over the past number of months, if you feel that there's things that God has been showing to you, feel that there are lessons that you've been learning that have been good for your spiritual growth, please come and let me know, and we can arrange to have a chat with you so that you can, through the things that you have learned, you can help and encourage others too. But that's it for today. So thank you, and we'll see you next time.